BTK Murderer. The BTK killer, Dennis Rader, made one of the most foolish mistakes in recent criminal history. He asked the police if a floppy disk could be traced, and then believed what they told him. In 2004, after years of silence, Rader started sending strange messages, letters, and packages to the media to get attention. He also contacted the police and asked if sending a floppy disk would be safe, or if it could be used to find him. The police answered through a newspaper ad, telling him it was safe and could not be traced. Rader believed them and sent a purple floppy disk to a local news station. But the disk wasn't clean. A deleted Microsoft Word file on it contained metadata that gave him away. It showed the file had been created at Christ Lutheran Church and last edited by someone named Dennis. Investigators searched and found that Dennis Rader was the president of that church's council. This clue, along with security camera footage, a black Jeep Cherokee seen at the scene, and DNA taken from his daughter, helped police confirm his identity. After 30 years of killing and hiding, that one moment finally exposed him. David Berkowitz. David Berkowitz, the serial killer known as the Son of Sam, was finally caught because of a parking ticket. On the night of his last shooting in July 1977, a woman named Cecilia Davis was walking her dog near the crime scene. She saw a police officer writing a ticket for a car parked illegally by a fire hydrant. Soon after, she noticed a man holding a dark object and acting strangely. Moments later, she heard gunshots. At first, Cecilia was too scared to speak out, but 4 days later, she reported what she saw. Investigators checked every car that had been ticketed in that area that night. One of them was a yellow Ford Galaxy registered to Berkowitz. As they looked deeper, police learned more strange details and decided to watch Berkowitz's car. On August 10th, they spotted a rifle inside the vehicle, and as they waited for a search warrant, Berkowitz came out of his apartment and got into the car. That's when officers moved in and arrested him. In the car, they found the .44 caliber revolver used in the shootings. Berkowitz didn't resist. Instead, he reportedly smiled and said, "Well, you got me." After a long manhunt, it was a simple parking ticket that finally got him arrested. Robert Durst. Robert Durst was finally caught because his own words were recorded by mistake. For years, Durst had avoided being held responsible for several serious crimes, including the disappearance of his wife, the murder of his close friend, Susan Berman, and the killing of his neighbor. In 2015, while being interviewed for the HBO documentary The Jinx, Durst was shown new evidence, an old letter he had written to Susan Berman that misspelled Beverly with an extra E. This small mistake became very important. Back in 2000, someone had sent an anonymous note to the police telling them there was a dead body at Berman's house. That note also had the same unusual spelling, Beverly Hills, with an extra E. The matching misspelling strongly suggested that Durst had written the anonymous note, meaning he likely knew about the murder before police did. After the interview, Durst went to the bathroom, still wearing a microphone. He didn't realize it was still recording, and while alone, he quietly said to himself, "There it is, you're caught. What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course." He was arrested for Susan Berman's murder just 1 day before the last episode of the documentary aired. Jodi Arias. After killing her ex-boyfriend Travis Alexander, Arias at first claimed she wasn't even in Arizona that day, where Travis died, but police found Alexander's damaged digital camera in his washing machine, and they were able to recover deleted photos from its memory card. These images showed Arias and Alexander together, taken just hours before the murder, and moments later, the camera, likely dropped by accident by Jodi during the attack, accidentally made photos. One showed Alexander bleeding on the bathroom floor, and another showed what looked like someone dragging his body. These photos proved Arias was there during the murder and directly contradicted her story. For whatever reason, she decided to just put the camera in Travis's washing machine. Investigators also found a bloody palm print at the crime scene that contained both her DNA and Alexander's. Paul Warner Powell. Paul Warner Powell was caught because of one of the most arrogant mistakes in criminal history. He confessed in a letter because he thought he had escaped the death penalty for good. Powell had been convicted of capital murder for killing 16-year-old Stacy Reed, but on appeal, his death sentence was overturned. The court ruled there wasn't enough evidence to prove he had tried to sexually assault Stacy, which was legally required for a capital murder charge under Virginia law. Instead, he was sentenced to life in prison for sexually assaulting Stacy's younger sister, Christy. Believing he could no longer be executed due to double jeopardy, a rule that says a person can't be tried twice for the same crime, Powell wrote a letter to the prosecutor. In it, he mocked the legal system, bragged about how stupid it was, and gave a full confession, saying in detail that he had tried to sexually assault Stacy before killing her. This was something he had always denied in court, but Powell misunderstood the law, and because he had never been found not guilty, prosecutors were allowed to retry him. His own letter became the key evidence in a new capital murder trial. This time, he was found guilty again and sentenced to death. Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh, the man who was responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, was ultimately caught because of a traffic stop just 90 minutes after the bombing for something completely unrelated. He was driving without a license plate on April 19, 1995, after detonating the massive truck bomb that killed 168 people at the Alfred Murrah Federal Building. McVeigh was pulled over on I-35 by Oklahoma State Trooper Charles Hanger. During the stop, Hanger also found that McVeigh was illegally carrying a hidden handgun, so he arrested him. At the time, the officer had no idea that he had just arrested the man responsible for the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history. McVeigh was held in jail for the gun charge, and that gave investigators the time they needed. 3 days later, they traced a part of the truck used in the bombing, a rear axle, to a Ryder rental truck. Rental records showed the truck had been rented in Junction City, Kansas, under the name Robert Kling. When they went there, they found a hotel manager in the area that saw the FBI sketch and recognized McVeigh. Authorities quickly realized that McVeigh was already in custody, just hours away from being released on the minor gun charge. If that trooper hadn't stopped him, McVeigh could have just disappeared. Albert Fish. Albert Fish was caught because of a disturbing letter he sent to his victim's family 6 years after the crime. In 1928, Fish kidnapped and murdered Grace Budd, but the case had gone cold. Then, in 1934, her mother received an anonymous letter filled with graphic and horrifying details. The writer explained how he had tricked Grace into coming with him, pretending she was going to a birthday party. He then described how he killed her. While some parts of the letter sounded fictional, the part about how Grace disappeared was too accurate to ignore. Police traced the letter to a piece of stationery from the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. That led them to a rooming house where Albert Fish had recently stayed. The landlady confirmed who he was and said he was expecting a check to be delivered there. Detectives waited for him to return. When he came back, they arrested him. Fish at first went quietly, but then suddenly pulled out a razor, which officers quickly took from him. At police headquarters, he confessed to killing Grace. The letter that led to his arrest became one of the most famous and horrifying pieces of evidence in U.S. criminal history. Harold Shipman. Harold Shipman was a well-known doctor in Hyde, England. The first warning came in early 1998, when another doctor, Linda Reynolds, noticed that an unusually high number of Shipman's elderly patients were dying, many of them after home visits and with Shipman himself signing the cremation forms. She reported it to police, but the first investigation was poorly handled and quickly closed. Then, a local taxi driver, John Shaw, also raised concerns. He noticed that many older patients he drove to Shipman's office never came back. The real turning point came with the sudden death of Kathleen Grundy, a healthy, well-known former mayor. She was found dead shortly after a visit from Shipman, who said she died of natural causes and signed the death certificate. But her daughter, a lawyer, was shocked to discover a suspicious will that left £386,000 to Shipman and cut her out completely. She went to the police. Grundy's body was exhumed, and tests found high levels of diamorphine, a drug Shipman had given to many patients. Investigators also found that Shipman changed her medical records to make it look like she was a long-time drug user. But his computer showed he entered those notes after she had died. Shipman was arrested in September 1998. He was convicted of 15 murders, but later investigations believe he may have killed over 200 people, making him one of the worst serial killers in modern history. Dennis Nilsen. For years, Dennis Nilsen lived quietly in a North London apartment. He was seen as a bit shy, but generally polite. Then, in early February 1983, other tenants in his building began to complain about serious plumbing problems. A repair technician from Dino Rod came to check the drains and found they were clogged with what looked like human flesh and small bones. Nilsen was there during the inspection and casually said it might just be leftover Kentucky Fried Chicken. The technician was suspicious and came back the next morning. But by then, the drains had been cleared overnight. He traced the blockage to the top-floor apartment, Dennis Nilsen's home. When police came to question Nilsen, they were hit by the strong smell of decomposition. At first, Nilsen acted surprised when asked about the remains in the drain, but within minutes, he confessed. Inside his apartment, officers found plastic bags filled with human body parts, hidden in a wardrobe. On the way to the police station, Nilsen told them he had killed 15 or 16 people. Robert Hansen. A woman named Cindy Paulson was found handcuffed in an Anchorage motel room. She told police that a man had kidnapped her at gunpoint, taken her to a remote cabin, and planned to kill her. She escaped while he was preparing his plane to fly away. Police questioned Robert Hansen, but he claimed Paulson was lying and trying to extort him. A friend gave him an alibi, and because Hansen seemed mild-mannered, the police let him go. Meanwhile, Detective Glenn Floth was investigating several bodies found in remote areas. He believed one person was responsible and asked the FBI for help. The profiler described the killer as a skilled hunter with low self-esteem, who probably kept trophies from his victims and possibly flew to remote areas. This profile pointed Detective Floth back to Hansen, who owned a plane and matched the psychological description. Combining this with Paulson's earlier story, police got a search warrant for Hansen's house, car, and plane. What they found was shocking. Jewelry from missing women, a .223 caliber rifle used in the murders, and most importantly, a map hidden behind his bed. The map had dozens of small X marks, many of which matched known body locations. Others led to new crime scenes. Faced with this evidence, especially his own map of the graves, Hansen finally confessed. He admitted to attacking and killing women over many years, starting as far back as 1971. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, known as the Toolbox Killers, were caught because of a major mistake. Norris talked too much. In November 1979, Norris met with an old prison friend named Joseph Jackson and confessed in disturbing detail to the kidnappings, sexual assaults, and murders he had committed with Bittaker over the past 5 months. He described failed abductions, the torture and killing of their final victim, Shirley Ledford, and even mentioned using tools like ice picks and a sledgehammer. Shocked by what he heard, Jackson told his lawyer, who advised him to contact the police. Detective Paul Bynum investigated Norris's claims and found they matched several unsolved cases. One key lead came from Robin Robeck, a woman who had survived. She quickly identified Bittaker and Norris from mugshots. A search of Bittaker's van and motel room uncovered damning evidence. Weapons, a tape of Ledford being tortured, Polaroid photos of missing girls, items belonging to the victims, and a bracelet Norris had kept as a souvenir. At a preliminary hearing on November 30th, Norris cracked and confessed. He blamed Bittaker and gave a full account of how everything happened. He even revealed the bottles of acid found in Bittaker's room were for a future victim. In the end, it was Norris's confession and Jackson's decision to go to the police that exposed their crimes. Israel Keyes. Keyes, known for being careful about staying anonymous, was caught for a crazy mistake. After killing 18-year-old Samantha Koenig in Alaska, Keyes asked for ransom money and started taking cash from her bank account at different ATMs, using Samantha's ATM card. Police had shared a notice about the suspect's car, and while watching hotel parking lots, officers spotted one that matched the description. They pulled Keyes over for speeding, but what confirmed he was the suspect was what they found in his car: money stained with dye from a bank robbery, Koenig's ATM card, and her phone. Keyes tried to say that someone must have randomly put those things in his car, but the evidence against him was too strong. Ariel Castro. For over 10 years, Ariel Castro managed to keep 3 women, Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, trapped in his Cleveland home without being discovered. He never let his guard down and never made a mistake big enough to give them a chance at freedom. But on May 6, 2013, that changed with one small but critical error. He forgot to lock a door inside the house. That day, Amanda Berry realized that the big inside door had been left unlocked when Castro went out, something he had never done before without setting a trap. Afraid it might be a test, Berry didn't try to escape, but when she saw neighbors outside, she began screaming for help. One of those neighbors, Charles Ramsey, came to her aid. With his help, Berry escaped, taking her 6-year-old daughter with her. She ran to a neighbor's house and called 911. Her message to the dispatcher was, "I'm Amanda Berry. I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now." Police arrived quickly and found DeJesus and Knight still trapped inside, along with disturbing evidence of their long-term captivity, such as chains and locks. Castro was arrested that same day in a McDonald's parking lot. Fritz Honka. Fritz Honka got away with multiple murders for years, even though he hid dismembered bodies inside his own apartment. Neighbors often complained about the awful smell coming from his unit, but their concerns were ignored. Honka tried to mask the odor with pine-scented air fresheners, but it wasn't enough. What finally exposed him wasn't a police investigation or a witness, it was an accident. In July 1975, a fire broke out in his building. While putting out the flames, firefighters found a decomposing body part stuffed in a plastic bag. Police searched the apartment and discovered more body parts hidden throughout the home. Honka, who was at work during the fire, was arrested when he returned. He quickly confessed, though he later claimed he couldn't remember the killings. In court, he blamed alcohol. He was convicted of 1 count of murder and 3 counts of manslaughter and sentenced to 15 years in a psychiatric facility. Danny Rolling. Between August 24th and 27, 1990, Danny Rolling killed 5 college students in Gainesville, Florida. The 36-year-old broke into student apartments and murdered 4 women and 1 man in a 3-day killing spree that scared the college town and later inspired the movie Scream. He would break into homes, catch his victims by surprise, often putting tape on their mouths and tying their hands before attacking them. Rolling's biggest mistake was leaving behind voice recordings at his camp in the woods near the student apartments. Police found tapes where Rolling had recorded himself singing and talking about what he had done. These tapes, along with the tools that matched the marks at the murder scenes, helped police know he was the killer. His blood type matched blood found at both the Florida murders and at 3 killings in Shreveport, Louisiana, which he later said he did in 1989. In 1994, Rolling was found guilty and got the death penalty. If you liked this video, subscribe for similar ones or join my Discord to suggest another.